Greetings, family. I'd like to ask for the permission of our elders before I begin. I wanted to make sure that the first voice in this critical conversation was the drum, for some very important reasons. I was in the ocean about a month ago, and I was just having this moment where, like, I mean, it's really like, can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Now we can. Now we can.
I was having this real, peaceful moment, just connecting with the ocean, just waves crashing, mountains around, the sky. It was really just a beautiful moment in my life, and the more I tried to sink into the moment, the more I realized that I was limited in my ability to be able to experience that moment, because I was like, man, how beautiful is this ocean? And I tried to find other words to describe it other than the ocean, but it would occur to me, even in that moment, in the deepest piece that I could find, that I could still just describe this body of water with this English phrase, the ocean. And then I was sitting there thinking, like, this isn't my language, right? This isn't the code that I use to ascribe to this experience. Everything that I could use to try to find this experience was coded by this language that was imposed upon my tongue, which is a trauma in the middle of this peaceful moment. And I was really sad by that. And then it took me on this investigation, like, so if I don't agree, like, even the people around in this land that I'm in don't agree on this language. The people that I'm in, the place that I'm from, we don't agree on this language. Nobody agrees on this language. And so it made me think about, what is the language that I agree upon? Like, what is my language that I say, I affirm that, I can endorse that, I can comfortably speak it when I introduce programs, or when I think about how to say I love you to my children, or how to praise God, like those things that are most intimate to me. It always came back to the drum, right? And I agree. I agree to that. I agree that this is how I'm comfortable speaking, and we're gonna spend the rest of the time speaking in English. And we're talking about, like, the trauma. We having a conversation about what they took from us in English. I never lose sight of the depth of the trauma as I say, introduce myself as Dr. Cartman. The name Cartman itself is a badge, is a wound, is a shame I have every time I say my name, right? So we're here for that. We're here to discuss the repair of that level of trauma to our psyches, to our spirits, to our families, to our communities. As sad as I am, I'm even more encouraged to be in rooms with such brilliant people. Like, as deep as the wounds get, I know we are so smart and we are so creative. We can figure everything out to dig ourselves out of this hole, to create the healing that we need. So I'm hoping, and I'm excited, I'm hopeful about this conversation we're here. I'm grateful for you all to gather in the cold and the COVID. So many reasons to not show up today, but y'all here. And we found ways to connect despite all over the world, right? Is the brilliance of not even using the white man platform, but connecting to the indigenous science and the technology of Africanness that has been usurped by other folk, but we very much embrace and incorporate into whatever gathering we can. So I'm grateful to be joined by so many people in present. I consider the drums a libation. We're asking the ancestors to join this conversation. There are no empty seats. They're all representing the people that are here that we are building on top of. We're welcoming this conversation in the house that Conrad built. I am literally wearing Conrad World shirt right now. Right? And so this is not the beginning of a conversation. We are continuing a conversation that's been happening for eons, and we got lots of brilliant resources to do so. The point today is just to bring them together, to weave them together to this tapestry that we know is the African brilliance that can save us, can heal our children, can turn everything around. And to do so in honoring of the brilliant work that Cobra has done with a recent report that I was really excited to dig into. We got some amazing so-called panelists, but it's not going to be a panel discussion in a way. This is a committee meeting. This is a planning session. This is a working meeting. We're gonna do some work. We're gonna make some linkages. We're gonna make sure everybody in the room know who everybody in the room is, what organizations y'all represent, what movements y'all are working on, locally, nationally, internationally, and we're gonna find ways to strategize that to the best interest of African people. So that's what we're here. That's the frame. And I would like to have a blessing of the event by none other than the illustrious Susan Taylor, who is a co-presenter, a co-coordinator of this event. Her organization, National Cares, has local chapters called Windy City Cares. They're doing amazing work all over the country and all over the world. She needs no introduction. But what we're doing here is representing of the partnerships that we're talking about. So Windy City Cares is partnering with Chicago Association of Black Psychologists, which is an embodiment of a national partnership between the National Cares and the National Association of Black Psychologists. I'm the current president of the Chicago chapter. We have the lead chair of the Windy City chapter here. But the national chair, the national president of the Black Psychologists are also Chicagoans. Donnell Barnett is the current national president, and the incoming national president of the Black Psychologists is also Chicago, Dr. Sharon Fathia, she'll probably be here a little bit later. So we got national linkages here. It's a relatively small gathering, but it's a powerful room. We got a lot of really, heavy hitters and people in really important places. We could do a lot from the conversation we have today. So be encouraged, right? We've been through a lot, but we got so much further to go. So without further ado, I'd like to have the glorious Susan Taylor share some words of encouragement, support, wisdom, and just whatever else you would like to share around this gathering, the importance of it, and your vision, your hope for us as a people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obara. You don't know how honored I am to be with you today. Just reading all the material that you sent, I dived into it. I'm certainly going to go back to it. And that Ramona Outlaw is there with you, our co-leader of Windy City Cares. I don't know if LaKendrick Williams is in the house, but I know that
Put the mic to your mic.
is transforming lives at Harlan High School.
Hold on one second, Mama. Let me see if I can get you to project on the whole screen. The whole sound system.
Oh,
It
okay.
should be able to
Can I
make yourself.
hear you well enough?
I can hear you. I don't know if everybody can hear you.
Oh, should I move closer?
No, it's not you. It's not you. It's not you. It's not you.
The mic closer.
Let me do a test sound check. Just say something.
Okay, this is Susan Taylor, really thanking you and Ramona Outlaw, forever Principal Outlaw. I'm sorry to keep calling you that. She elevated from there. Can you hear me?
Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Michael Nelson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
They can hear you right in the front, but not everywhere.
Is Kendrick in the house?
No.
Okay. We know the ancestors, Mom. But let them.
Give me 5 minutes, Mama. I'm gonna go get another speaker, an external speaker from my car, and then I'll let Cam say some words to introduce to the report of the gathering and some other folk in the room that we need to know are here. So give me 5 minutes, please. I want people to be able to hear you. Cam, come on. Oh, Dr. D is in that room. Hey, Doc.
What would you like me to do? I'll come before Howard.
So greetings, everyone, and Dr. Obari said there's national representation here. I'm also the national co-chair of NCOBRA. NCOBRA has been around for 34 years, leading the struggle in America for reparations. And this report, we said we've intensified that struggle with the release of this report. We released the report last month in DC, Washington, DC, at Capitol Hill. We had 6 congresspersons stand with us at the Capitol, led by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Congressman Danny Davis, Congresswoman Alma Adams, who's done a lot of work around historical black colleges. The newest congressperson, the CBC, Chantel Brown, came out and supported Congressman Jamal Bowman of New York, and Congressman Jan Schakowsky. So it was a wide representative of the CBC around the country speaking to this issue that this report is necessary and powerful for us to move forward in our demand for reparations. Historically, when I got in the movement about 16 years ago, I read information about opposition. You want to know who opposes and why they oppose reparations, if you're going to fight for reparations. And one of the arguments have always been, even when the leaders who founded NCOBRA, I was watching some of the debates that they had, and certainly when I joined, one of the major arguments against reparations was that it happened too long ago. That none of you all were enslaved. Why don't you get over it, move on, forget about it? You weren't affected. And just recently in 2019, when we had the House hearing in Congress, Mitch McConnell raised the same argument, right? Leader of the Senate, right? Raised the same argument. So this report was extremely important. How did we get to this report? One of our members in Chicago chapter by the name of Manson Coulibaly said, you got to meet this bad brother from Dunbar. I'm a Dunbar alumni, and Manson's a Dunbar because he's right there from Dunbar. So you got to meet this bad brother from Dunbar. He did some research on transgeneration epigenetics. I had never heard the term, and I reached out to Dr. Kenneth Nave here, and he shared his research with me. And I began talking about this issue of transgeneration epigenetic inheritance since that time all over, wherever I spoke, that there's an inherited injury that we've all experienced from historical trauma. And so we were sharing that amongst ourselves, those of us in the reparations movement, but we felt we had to get out larger than those within the movement. So we looked for, when COVID hit, we immediately knew, because COVID was saying, more people were affected were black people, and it's because of the pre-existing illnesses. They connected black death from COVID with pre-existing illnesses. So we said, well, the pre-existing illness exists because of the historical trauma that our ancestors experienced and what has been passed down in our DNA, because we know that from the science that Dr. Nave shared and other science, that the immune system can be damaged as a result of historical trauma, the physical component of that. And so we went out, we looked at it, we contacted a few institutions, black institutions, to get them to do the research. We didn't get a response. I was introduced to a young sister who had took a class on transgeneration epigenetics. That was part of the subject of one of her classes she took at an Ivy League school she had went to, and she knew a professor who was affiliated with George Hopkins University, and we reached out to her, we contracted her to do the research, and it was good that we got an institution that was a predominantly white institution who white folks will listen to, right? Because they're scientists, we had our co-chair of our health commission, Dr. Najee, and other brilliant co-chair of the health commission, to make sure that even though we were getting this research from this institution, it had a lens and a focus that was African-centered as much as possible, as she could write it. And we, made sure that we tweaked the report. So that's really what we wanted her to do, was just do a review of the current research, scientific research out there on this issue of transgeneration epigenetic inheritance, with an emphasis on mitigation, on remedy. Because we don't just want to say this existed and there's nothing we can do about it. Because the science says there is something we can do about it. It doesn't have to continue generation after generation, but it will if nothing is done. So the argument we wanted to make was that we are affected by the crimes committed against our ancestors. And it's been an accumulated effect, and it will continue unless there's some type of mitigation. So there's 5 things that NCOBRA wanted from this report. One was, we wanted to include in every conversation around health disparities the historical trauma that we've experienced. You cannot talk about health disparities, black health disparities in this country, and leave out historical trauma. And that has been left out. It hasn't been raised. So this report says you must include that in the conversation. Second, we wanted resources targeted to our healers who are doing the healing work in our communities that doesn't look like what's coming out of these European healing institutions, because they're not going to address the foundational injury. And so we wanted research and resources. Research by our practitioners, by our healers, by, for us, by us, FUBU. And so we want resources to go to research. We want resources to go to healing, to our healers. That's the third thing. The fourth thing is we wanted awareness. We wanted our people to be aware that this is this, because there's something we can do individually. We can change our diet. We can change our lifestyle. We can meditate. We can do, all type of modalities that we can do, African-centered and others, that can address this particular injury. And then finally, we wanted inclusion. I'm sorry, awareness, inclusion, resource research, and we wanted to introduce African-centered healing modalities, what we call decolonizing health. All health does not look like what comes out of white institutions, right? We got to have and insert in every healing conversation the traditional African healing modalities. That has not been in the conversation. And so those are the 5 things that we wanted to produce out of this report. And we wanted to put to death that whole argument that we're too far removed from enslavement, because we're not removed, and the science is saying that. So thank everybody for,
Thank
coming out.
you.
Definitely want to thank the Association of Black Psychologists, Association of Black Social Workers, because it is these institutions that we have to look for to push the policy along with ENCODE. We're going to try to push policy, but we need our voices in these spaces, in these areas of healing that we can depend on as we go and champion for these resources. I'm going to stop there. You got it? Thank you again.
Okay, let's try this again. Let me see if somebody else Zoom can speak. Let's try to see if it works.
Dr. Carter, can you hear me?
Much
There we
better.
go.
Right.
Okay. All right, we're good to go. This is louder for sure. Mama Susan?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. You in the room now.
So, I am,
Yes, ma'am.
and can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Oh, good, okay, well, I'm gonna thank, again, Ramona Outlaw, healer, teacher, principal, lover of our people, who shows up. And God knows, Michael Akondi Nelson, the young people at Harlan High adore you, and we know why. And I don't know if McKendrick Williams is there, but I want to just call his name. And all the other people like Beatrice Hayes and those who are helping us to do the work in Chicago and all around the country. So National Peers Measurement Movement, you'll hear more about that later, but it's in absolute synergy with the work that you're doing. And for this day and for you, Dr. Obari, I just say thank you. I thank the ancestors for all that they withstood so that we today have the lives that we better never take for granted. I thank the elders, like me, I'm an elder, for staying on the path. So many of us have really dropped the baton and what we're doing, and that's our challenge. Our challenge is bringing the awareness to our children and our communities so that we can pick up that baton and keep moving forward. In reading all the material that you sent, so inspired and informed. I'm going to go back to it. I've highlighted so many things that I want others to read and know. That Sankofa you raise in that beautiful, beautiful document, Sankofa. And I know what putting together a report that is probably, 30, 40 more pages long takes as a writer and editor. I know the time, energy, effort, wisdom, collaboration that was put into it. It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning and so well done. The ancestors are proud, and we elders are too. Sankofa, you raise Sankofa. We have to keep that in mind and in heart. This is a moving forward of what William Patterson and Paul Robeson put before the Civil Rights Congress in 70 years ago. 70 years ago, next Friday, the 17th, It will be 70 years since those two brothers and a whole coterie of people, signed on by folks from all over the country, put before the United Nations. The United Nations accepted it. The United States did not. And both William Patterson and Paul Robeson and others whose names we may not ever be able to call were punished. Because anytime you stand for justice, you're going to be punished. You're going to be surveilled. People are going to try to break us apart and tear us down, and there'll always be betrayers among us. Always. You know, for that submission, Paul Robeson and William Patterson were disallowed. Their passports were taken. They weren't allowed to travel abroad anymore. But what we have to know is that while the United States press didn't do much about it, didn't carry it much at all throughout Europe and in our motherland, that petition was written about and understood, and people joined in and really tried to help. So this is an ongoing movement, and that in Cobra has been in place for 34 years, speaks about the dedication, the tenacity, and the vision, you know, that is held. And there's something very special about Chicago. We can look at the Black business community in Chicago. Maybe not today, I'm not so sure about it, but certainly when Essence was founded in 1970, most of our advertising dollars came from businesses in Chicago, and we always have to bow down to John Johnson and the other giants there, the other Johnsons, you know, who were giants and moved us forward. So we have everything we need. We have everything we need because there will always be people who try to destroy our movements because of their fear and ignorance. The most important thing, I think, for us to hold near and dear is what our arrival cost. What it cost. We lost everything. Everything. It's not, you know, we lost country of origin. We're the only people who don't know where our folk come from. We can name a continent, but we can't name a country. We can do the DNA studies and get some of that information. But we lost country of origin. We lost family ties, the most important thing to any people, and so dear to African people. We lost foodways and our connection to our religious practices. We lost family. We lost everything that was near and dear to us. So this is a moment of reknitting. It's recovering what we lost and reknitting ourselves to one another. I'm getting to one point, and it's the point of unity. There'll always be those who betray us. We saw it happen to Dr. King and Malcolm and, you know, Mary McLeod Bethune even, and certainly to Ida B. Wells Barnett and all the people who we can mention. But I love what Gwendolyn Brooks really seeded in us, the poet laureate of Chicago and the first Black person to receive a Pulitzer. She said, we are each other's keeper. We are each other's keeper. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's magnitude and bond. That's who we are. And the challenge, I believe, that we have right now, it's not just I believe, I know this, but really standing in unity. And so in reading the documents, and reading about the wonderful sports club for young people that has been started there in Chicago and probably in other cities across the country, we have to meet our young people where they are. We can stop the violence. Come on now, we can do that. We just don't know who we are. So what we have to do is meet young people where we are. We have to convince our faith leaders to open up their mosques and those churches, those sanctuaries, so that we can enter them during the day when they're empty or in the evenings and on Saturdays or Sundays and bring our community together to really learn the history. You see, when we know the history, we know who we are. When we know the history, then we're not trying to kill one another. We understand that there are people who would want us to do that. And what we can't be is afraid of one another. We can't be afraid of our children. We have to risk walking through our communities with love. Love is the strongest, it's the greatest force in the universe. And it's what we have to, imbibe. It's what we have to live. It's what we have to understand. And so unity, how do we get to that? how do we get to, I don't know why my phone keeps buzzing. I turned it off, well here, I don't know, it has a mind of its own, it's a new one. But that's the question. How do we instill trust in our community so that we aggregate our dollars and kind of put a halt to gentrification and use our monies to buy blocks in communities and to restore? When people can come to the kind of healing work that's written about in a report and really see films about our history, there's so many beautiful documentaries. When they can come and hear speakers like those who are here today and those who are not here today, but who certainly participated in the making of this report, when you hear that, then you feel strong. You know that this is not the rough side of the mountain. What our ancestors, our foreparents withstood, that was tough stuff. What we whine and complain about pales in comparison. I said, stop whining. Stop complaining about what? Take a breath, get healthy, get strong, eat to live, as you talk about plant-based diets. Retire the meat. You know, everything is a process and it takes time. It takes time. Change takes time. But we are positioned today because there is a willingness. There's a willingness among some outside of our race to stand with us. And we have to be as strategic in putting before the Congress the issue of reparations. As folks who have never wanted Black people to thrive, we have to be as strategic as they've been in building those walls, building those barriers, keeping us from knowing who we are and appreciating our beauty, our majesty, our power, and having freedom. And so that means that we can't say everything that we may want to say when we think we're not being heard. We're always being heard, I think. We have to be very careful. And we have to make sure, well, this is so important. To me, the most important word is understanding. I understand why folks have made up this thing about critical race theory, and they're going to name anything that has to do with justice and telling the truth of the history of this nation, critical race theory, and we know that's not what it is at all. It's a legal term that means something totally different. But let us come with understanding about how difficult it is for European people here in America to what? To own what their ancestors did to us. How do you tell your children that your ancestors stole all the indigenous people's land? That you killed them off, as many as you could, all throughout the Western Hemisphere? How do you say that to your children and maintain respect? How do you tell your children that you stole bodies from Africa and put people in the hulls of ships? That people lived in their feces and their menses across the Atlantic Ocean. If the weather was favorable, it took 3 months. That you kept us in chains, that there were all sorts of punishing devices, the lynchings, all the things that have been documented, and that there are even pictures of some of those things. How do you say that to your children and maintain the respect? So that's the challenge that white people have, and that's why they don't want the truth to be told. Because you can't say that this is America the Beautiful. How do you pledge allegiance to the flag? How do you pledge allegiance to a nation that your grandparents and your great-grandparents gave their lives for, believing that they were fighting for justice, when it was really about economics? I just say to you, come to understanding what it is that we have to override and be strategic. And finally, I just want to say that, we are more than we seem. We are human and divine. It's what our ancestors knew and what we have to hold on to. We're vessels. We are vessels. We're channels. The Holy Spirit, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, beauty, love, whatever you call the divinity that created you, it's moving through you and it's taking us to where we need to be. So what we have to do is show up fit, focused, organized, disciplined, and armed with a plan of action that ensures that we win. So thank you for inviting me, and Dr. O'Brien, please make sure that I don't get disconnected. I just want to be here for the whole of it, and my husband has to come and listen too. So can I stay on this? I can get myself off screen, but can this connection remain so that I can be here for the rest of the conference?
Of course.
You're here.
Great. So God bless you. Ancestors are in our hearts, guiding us, guarding us as we move forward.
Yay!
And that's the program. Thanks for coming. We do want to give Reverend Sean Ford here for a moment. He really wanted to be in the room, but has a radio program that's happening at WVON maybe soon. So if you had a moment, there you go. So we can give Reverend Sean Ford, the boldest, blackest politician I know, to share some words around this movement and the importance and the policies and some of your work, some of your historical work around reparations. Please, you got the floor, bro.
Well, Dr. Carter and everyone, and of course, Cam, thank you all for all that you do for Black people and making sure that our struggle is never forgotten. And I heard you say earlier about not as many people, but if the Lord say wherever two or more are gathered, that's enough. So we have a lot more than two here today. So I'm very excited of being on with you all today. And let me just say that what we have to do is continue to make politicians listen to the message. And that's what you do when you go out and you speak to elected officials throughout the country, Cam and Dr. Carton. If they don't hear from us, then they will never know the struggle because they're ignorant to the fact. And the more we can make politicians listen, I believe the more we will get them on our side as it relates to reparations. Secondly, I think that when you look at the report that was issued, I don't think we have to wait for reparations to start working on demands. Reparations must, it's due to us, but it's also, the demand should continue every day so that we can become stronger and stronger to fight for reparations. So when you think of the psychologists, social workers, and psychiatrists, the Black organizations, we need you all to be strong and we need to support you. We need to make sure that we get more Black psychologists, Black social workers, Black psychiatrists in America so that we can deal with our struggles as Black people and teach white people about our struggles. And so I would say that if we're going to continue to fight, and I know we are, we have to make sure that we start making demands leading up to reparations. We can't just wait for reparations because we spend billions and trillions of dollars every year in this country to help people. And so why not help the people that need it the most? And I do believe that Black people are in need of lots of things and we are worthy of it. So as a state rep, I look forward to working with you all to figure out how we can put some legislation together to make sure that we work with higher ed to provide some type of free education for individuals that would like to join the psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers in Illinois. Because if we're going to deal with the behavioral health and mental health and reduce the challenges that our Black people face, we need people that look like us in these professions. It's very difficult to end the stigma of going to see a doctor for your mental health when there's few in our neighborhoods that look like us. And so if we're going to end the stigma of behavioral health, seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist, then we should get more people that understand us, and it'll be easier for us to get into those doctors' offices. I'm a strong believer that we have to be mentally and physically strong, and so I continue to join you all, and I would like to re-enlist my commitment to being a partner in the fight for reparations and in the fight to get more mental health supporters for our neighborhood. So please count on me, and I look forward to listening and carrying your message wherever I go when I'm in the legislature and wherever I go, because I learn from you all. So thank you so very much, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You got a second for a question? Anybody got any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody got any questions for Rep. Sean Ford? Yes, sir. Me. Yeah, quick questions while we got him for a moment.
I'd like to know what happened to House Bill 4954 to put the 3 visually affirmed days of respect on the school calendar.
Can you hear her?
Yes, Mama D, that's your legislation. It passed.
No, it didn't pass. I called in, tried to check up. I know we got a lot of sponsors every single time, but they said it died, but it could be brought back up again.
Mama D, that legislation passed with the Black Caucus pillars. We passed the bill to make sure that the dates are on the calendar. We passed the bill to make sure that enslavement is included, and we passed the bill to make sure that we have inclusive history taught in the schools. So the bill that you're talking about was not the final bill that passed. The bill that passed was the inclusive American history bill that the Black Caucus all got around and passed. So I'll get you that bill number so that you can see which bill had your language in it.
Okay, because what people need to understand is that 1954 to 1965, those 11 years of movement period, we need to get credit for. And when we go, when you want to know about the Holocaust, so you go to the Holocaust survivors. When you want to know about Jim Crow genocide, you should go to the Jim Crow genocide survivors. So what is important is that there isn't one day, except for the one that's in the Days of Respect, on the school calendar in all America that talks about the principles of human and civil rights, and we're the only people that had those principles taken, those rights taken away from us for 246 years, followed by 88 years of the segregation laws to keep the status of the Negro down. So when we do this visually affirmed days, like wearing the color green on St. Patrick's Day, we put on that color white January 15th, that's Dr. King's actual birthday, and show respect for all of those that challenge the system of white supremacy practices, no matter what their race. April 4th, the principles of nonviolence. We need to know why we had to use those particular principles and showing respect for present-day victims, missing children who are potential victims and survivors of rape and incest. April 4th, black colors and black and white colors. On August 28th, for the principles of righteousness, justice, peace, peoplehood, and cultural coexistence. So our children will have a time to hit it 3 times. January, April, and August to feel good about themselves and stand out. And so please do get me that number, because January 15th, I'd like to have something done special on that in the school system. But my question to you is, next Saturday, December 18th, is the 156th anniversary of the ratifying of the 13th that changed the individual ownership of slaves and made it institutional ownership of slaves through incarceration. So what do you think about what's happening in Washington, D.C. that's trying to rectify that?
I can't hear what I think about that, because that's off the I'll just listen to what's most important. But let me just say, I'll get you that number for the bill so that we can have a conversation about making sure the dates are on, and I'll look into the, of course, I understand the 13th Amendment, and I'll look into the what you're talking about in DC. But let me just finally close with saying that not only do we need, I think I saw Sister Yara Simpson on, we also need Black epidemiologists also. So if she's there, I'm gonna just give her a big shout out, because if we could get that group, medical doctors, epidemiologists, and psychologists, and social workers, those are the things, professions that we need to make our community strong, so that we have people that look like us and understand us. And you guys know I suffered from prostate cancer, and I, of course, had a doctor, that believed in the white science that said that you were supposed to get prostate screenings at 50 to 55. Well, the truth is, Black people should be screened for prostate as early as 40. And so we have to make sure that we invest in Black professionals so that we can live longer and healthier. So thank you so very much, and I will get in touch with Mama D.
Thank you very much, Brother Sean. Give him a hand, please, for taking some time out to share. And so for the rest of the program, I mean, the idea was really to do exactly how you just described, get a bunch of different perspectives, professional expertise, to look at this report and to share some ideas about how it could be applied to the work that we're doing in terms of healing intergenerational trauma. So we have epidemiologists in the room, we got medical doctors, we have educators, we got social workers, and so we're going to give folks a chance to just share from that vantage point how they saw the report and then how we can strategize around how to use it. I'm going to start with Dr. Mikhail Lewis, who is also on Zoom. I'm going to get the Zoom out the way so we can just close that and just talk freely. So since he's here and hopefully safe in the seatbelt, the reason I asked him to come speak is because he works in probation, and so he has a front row view of some of the trauma that our young men and young women are facing, how it's manifesting in the communities and the chaos that's been caused. And he's also a counselor, his doctors, he has PsyD, so he sees things from such a really rich view. So I wanted him to share his ideas about the report and some ways that we can collaborate with that system, the probation, the justice system, the so-called justice system. So we can get Dr. Lewis to come and share some words, and then the panelists can come up, and then we'll give everybody 2-3 minutes to share, and then open the floor for open discussion so the town hall staff just to, again, strategize around this report and this topic. Dr. Lewis, we're going to bring you in and keep it going. Uh-oh.
Brother Carmen, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit.
Brother Carmen, can you hear me well?
Yeah, it's a little choppy, but yeah, go
Folks
for
in
it.
the room hear me? Folks in the room?
Uh-oh.
No, this might not work. You choppy. Where you at? You in Kansas? Driving to Atlanta, I think, right now. No, we can hear you. If you're speaking, we can hear you. Just kidding. Won't waste no time on this. All right, let's keep moving. So, let's bring our panelists up. We have most folks in our earlier meeting. He's still talking. Just mute. Oh, there you go. Okay. Now, your day went low, bro. How do I think it's gonna work?
You muted him.
Somebody's muted.
Barry muted him.
Try it again. I'll give you one more shot. All right. No, we're gonna do this some other time. You probably talking like that. Yeah, we can try that. We'll keep moving still. I'll talk. I ain't waste 5 minutes.
Send them a message in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just call them. We'll talk. We'll figure it out.
Someone's calling you.
So let's just do this. I'm not gonna introduce everybody one at a time. We want to keep this moving as quick as we can. And we'll start with Dr. Constance Jabaz, because you sit next to me, and then go along the row. We got Jatara Rollins. We have Principal and Michael. Can I get both y'all to speak?
Can they come here?
Yeah, everybody come up. Join us up in this dance.
This
We got
time?
Sister
Yeah.
Yah Simpson,
They
got
can't
Brother
see.
Dr. Nave. I'm gonna have you stay there where you are. I got to see what's covered. You can have a seat up here.
And here's more chairs.
Okay, I'll put the PowerPoint up while you get set. So we're gonna do this. So y'all can introduce yourselves. We'll be a little bit quick in our way. Just talk about your work, what organizations you represent, and then just share some perspectives on the report and how it can be applied to the work you're doing, and how we can collaborate together to be more strategic and make this, impactful going forward. To take the great work that Incoba gave us to use it in our communities to really look at intergenerational harm. So we're going to start again, Dr. Shabazz of the Salam Wellness Center, and then we'll go down the road.
My name is Constance Shabazz, and I'm with the Salam Community Wellness Center, and I look at this report as being a coming out party, because the Salam Community Wellness Center started just last year in response to COVID. We realized at that time that what we were starting was really a movement, because we looked at COVID-19 as just a reminder of the inequities, the disparities, the health disparities that have been long-standing. And so our idea was not just to open up yet another health center on the south side. By the way, we're in the Woodlawn community, which is one of those as infections and death from COVID-19. But to us to address the long-standing inequities, disparities in our community, we decided not to just do it the old traditional Western model. Utilize those modalities, be they Western or non-Western modalities, to address 4 key areas in particular. Appropriate primary care. 2, addiction, COVID-19. One thing, but unless you address the mental of our people for the treatment of addiction, we have a social worker who is also a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. We have a naturopathic doctor. We have Reiki. We have nutrition. But more importantly, we are from the community. Okay? And that's the most important thing, because no matter what modalities that you are providing for the community, one of the biggest issues that we have in our community is a lack of trust. And there's a study that the University of Illinois put out recently that talked about how many of the people who are frequent users of the emergency room, rather than going to a primary care physician, say they go there because the primary care physicians don't look like them. They're not in touch with their reality. They say, well, they're always telling me that I need to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. And what they respond is, well, where do I get them from? So what we're doing is, in our model, is not only providing these modalities, but another thing we're doing is we are in the process of acquiring 2 vacant lots through the city of Chicago. We are going to build an enclosed urban farm, so as we can provide fresh fruits and vegetables to that desert community 24/7.
Sure.
We also know we have to address what are called the social determinants of health. And unless you find or provide someone with clothing and shelter and education and work, then everything else is upended. So what I call this, like I said, a coming out party, because what I have seen in the report is a validation of what we had already started building on. And I'm so glad to see mentors for so many of us, Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. DeBry, who already were talking about things, and we're doing the research to support what we always felt. But that that you included in that report, people who were doing the research and validating what so many of us as practitioners have felt for years, but we just didn't have the research to do it. We were in the trenches just doing the work. So I thank you so much for the work that you've done. When I read it, I was like, here it is. This is our validation. And just to let you know, we are actively approaching and addressing those issues that you say need to be addressed as a result of this transgenerational trauma. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry, I did not realize that. My name is Dr. Ken Nave. Grew up in Woodlawn, 62nd and Guys Grove, Woodlawn Valley. Born and bred in Chicago. I was listening to her, trying to collect my thoughts because everything she's doing is right on the streets I walked as a youth. Delivered papers at Gail Sayers branch of neighborhoods, Gail Sayers branch for Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Daily News and Chicago Today. I'm dating myself. This young man right here, I trained him and man, this is just a lot going on here right now. It's good to see everybody. Well, first I want to thank Cam for his leadership. Let's give him a round of applause. I had no idea. I went to Dunbar and my son Koulibaly, I think I met him at a picnic, and you know, he's just the most friendly person on all the earth, but I'm somewhat understated in terms of demonstrating socially, publicly, some of the things I've been able to do in my life. But I left Dunbar in 1980, went down to Fisk University and got a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry in 1984. Then I matriculated to Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. Those are both historically black colleges and universities, and it's important to note that and to stand on that, because any work that I've done, I owe to the fact that I was able to go to Nashville and walk beneath the feet of many African-American professors and doctors who led me to believe that nobody tells a little black boy in Woodlawn he can be a doctor. That's just something that was God ordained. I had people say, oh, your mother must have been great. No, I had a community that raised me. You know, and in my day coming up, the community did raise the child. Makash Elementary School, now it's Emmett Till, which clearly is part of this whole archetypal background of who I became as a person. Just so many connections in terms of how God ordained all of us right now to be together in these moments and to be able to begin to bring this work forth. Cam, man, my song introduced us, and Cam didn't know me from John, I didn't know him from Jesus, but we became fast friends, you know, and there's never been an ego thing involved. Whatever the goal was, you know, we both were able to get to the fruit of the matter. And when I met Cam, I had been writing about transgenerational epigenetics. It started with the first dismissal order for the reparations lawsuit that was done 2004, I believe. And when that reparations lawsuit was dismissed, and on the grounds of the dismissal was there was not a current injury, we did not have competent proof or standing to bring forth this suit, and it's very important. This is the book I wrote based on that. It took me 15 years to write the book because the science of epigenetics kept changing. And because it kept changing, I had to keep rewriting the information because we had to be able to say definitively what was our current injury. So I started writing the book, and it wasn't even the term transgenerational epigenetics, and epigenetics was just coming into being 20 years ago. So I didn't have the language to describe the trauma that had occurred to us, but I knew that there was something that was being carried on from generation to generation. And then, lo and behold, God so ordained that white people began talking about this. And I said, ta-ching, I got you. It was one of those aha moments, real talk. And then it was around that time that I think I met Cam. And I was talking to Cam, but see, like I said, I'm somewhat understated, so Cam knew immediately that it was a link there, but I was saying, oh no, the dismissal suit, they were wrong. We have a current injury and we do have standing because through our genetics, we've had translated the trauma from our ancestors. And because something is fundamentally known to you, you know, you don't realize that something that you could be working on could just dynamically change something. So me being so understated, it took him to really take this idea and say, no, we're gonna beat them over the head with this. Because again, I was just sitting back writing and doing what I do. I mean, Mike can tell you probably, just that I like being the hood guy. I like being a really laid back guy. I let somebody else go be the point of the spear. Let me be the shaft. So when I came up with the idea, once the whole issue of epigenetics and transgenerational epigenetics became concrete in the science, it was no longer post-traumatic stress disorder with Dr. DeGrasse, because that's philosophical. It was true, but it was philosophical. There was no tangible, definitive proof that such an injury could occur in individuals. But now, there is tangible, definitive proof that the injuries that occurred to our ancestors are being translated in our genes through the epigene. And if I can briefly give you all 2 minutes spiel on epigenetics, transgenerational epigenetics, because we talk about it because it's become familiar to us in terms of our language, but the average layperson has no, it's just a long fancy word, and people say it because you sound real intelligent when you say transgenerational epigenetics, but if you don't really understand it, you're not going to be able to convey to the people that you're fighting the truth about what it is. And every living cell, every living organism has a gene, and that gene contains material that is generation after generation, whether it be a bacteria, whether it be a virus, whether it be a rat, whether it be a monkey, or whether it be a human being. Those genes transmit generation after generation specific information about the structure and the function of that organism. Whether you be a human being, it translates for eye color, it translates for the function of the cardiovascular system, the prostate, the breast. So the genetic transference of this information is impacted by environment. So the environment will change the structure and the function of the gene through a part of the gene called the epigene that was thought to be just junk material. But in the epigene is encoded this information that is environmentally encoded. So if you put somebody in a certain environmental situation and it's traumatic or pathologic, the epigene will program the gene in such a way that the organism can respond to the trauma that it is undergoing at that time. So what you end up having is an alteration in the genetic function. It doesn't alter my genes for hair color, eye colors, height, weight, bone structure, but it alters the function of those key neurologic and physiologic centers that regulate blood pressure, regulate the expression of the breast, regulate the function of the brain and the limbic system, and determine whether you can learn, whether you can respond emotionally, whether your maternal instincts are intact, whether you act out violently or whether you act passionately. It's really serious. It's very significant, and we have to look at this as the new epoch or the new paradigm for how we frame it, alterations in the genetics of the breast. So who has the highest rate of breast cancer? This is the logic. Because black men were forced to procreate, you could be lynched if you did not go into the slave quarters and mate with Sally Sue or whatever they did. And the prostate is a part of the reproductive system of man. Could our prostate cancer be related to this overindulgence and procreativity that was forced upon us? These are things you have to think about. And then we aren't even talking about the transgenerational epigenetic issue of the brain chemistry, the limbic system, and how it relates to memory, how it relates to personality development. Because people don't understand personality traits like violence and crime can also be transgenerationally epigenetically transferred. And when you go into a certain environment, it will create, that environment will create, through the transgenerational epigenetic mechanisms, the behavior related to that. So it's really, we're just really beginning the tip of the iceberg to understand, Dean, what this is all about. And I believe that it's not just for African Americans. I think God is using us like He used Israel. Well, we are Israel, so I don't even know how to make it. So, but I believe that God is using modern Africans in the diaspora to demonstrate this transgenerational epigenetic issue to the world, and how environment, generation after generation, shapes physical and mental health, and how we have to begin changing the environment, because that is the solution. We have to change the external environment and the internal environment. We're going to talk about it, I'm sure, more as we go on. I didn't mean to be so long-winded, but thank you for this moment. We'll talk further.
Good morning, everyone. No, afternoon. My name is Ramona Outlaw. I am a retired educator. I was a principal at Harlan High School, assistant principal, teacher, all of that, but that's irrelevant. Susan gave me such a wonderful introduction. But myself, Ramona Outlaw, and Michael Akani Nelson, we represent Windy City Cares, which, of course, is the local arm of National Cares Mentoring Movement. And what the report brought to me was insightful, but like you said, it's just a validation for what we already knew. I think the most important ding, ding, ding for me was section 6, page 24, right? When it talks about the power of a present parent. That parent could be the person who birthed you or the person who births your confidence, right? And so for me as an educator, as a young teacher, I learned very early on the power of providing confidence and a sense of belonging for our young people in a classroom or a school community. And I got a lot of pushback from the people who supervised me, be it my principal or a superintendent, for creating spaces that were African-centered in a public school system, or creating spaces that were culturally responsive. But I am thankful to be retired, but still working. I retired from the job, but I didn't retire from the work. And so I am happy to still be a presence at Harlan High School. I am so grateful and blessed to know that Michael Akani Nelson works there every day. But I get to do the work that I really couldn't do as a principal because I'm no longer an employee. Well, no, let me be quiet. But anyway, I am working to make sure that we partner with the organizations and the people in this room and the authors of the report to know that we can now provide the targeted interventions that our young people need. We can also find, recruit other healed people to do that work as well. Because we know that the public school system is so large, and that's really why we have been hampered. One of the reasons. It's so large, and everybody talks about we need more psychologists, we need more sociologists, we need that. But if we partner with your organization to train healed people to go in and be those, I like to call it vessels, for our young people to listen with an ear of love, right? Because like Susan said, anything we love can be saved, I believe it.
That's right.
But that love has to be pure and intentional. And it has to be pure and intentional in spaces like school, where it's a slippery slope, right? If you love the children, you're getting too close. If you touch the children, that's forbidden. But our young people crave it. Michael Akani Nelson, during the pandemic, virtually provided mentoring supports for the entire body, our entire school body. And as we walk the hallways now, the young people say to him, Brother Michael, what's up? We're coming back. We need you. We need you. And everybody in education now is talking about, well, the children have been out of school for 18 or 19 months, and now we can't control them. Well, what did you expect? What did you expect? Because when the pandemic started, everybody praised the teacher. Oh, the teacher's been doing this. We need the teacher because we don't want to. But now, they send them right back to school, and they want them to do school as normal, usual, with no supports. And as I know my children to be, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to show you. Because no, that's not what we need. That's not what we want. We need some love and understanding. Full stop. Period. And so I'm going to let Mr. Akani Nelson talk about the ideas and the work and the structures that he is creating that really are going to really help our children be the best versions of themselves. Thank you. One more thing. I'm gonna try to have a sign up in the back for those people who are interested, because the part of Windy City Cares, Susan is listening, the part of Windy City Cares that we really are desperate to have are for volunteers to sign up. We will make sure that we get you able to get into the school system to show up for our young people. If you can't show up in the school, you might want to show up virtually on one of the mentoring lessons, or you might want to provide an opportunity for students to shadow, intern, or get into spaces like the report talks about with SOAR, right? Because our young people crave those connections and those vessels to be really great outside of the classroom. And so we need you, and we need to partner with you for that. I'm gonna have that back there. If I can, Obari, can I?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, rather. My name is Brother Michael. I work with Woodley City Cares and Harlem Rising. Part of what stands out in the report to me is just the understanding of language, right? Many of our students at the schools, their language is based around survival, right? I gotta eat, I gotta do this. Their back is to the wall. There's this sense of urgency to survive, right? But the restructuring of the language around life, right? About living, right? What do you love? What do you want to be? What are your dreams? What are your goals? You know, what are your observations of the world? What do you believe that the world perceives you as? In return, what do you see yourself in the world being perceived as? And so the goal for us is definitely understanding that there are hidden obstacles that our children go through, that they're coming from an environment where these hidden obstacles have been prevalent for generations. And we're seeing the byproduct and the symptoms of all of these challenges and obstacles that have went unaddressed, and the hurt that comes with a damaged community. So when we speak about education, our students, they're looking to make fun of it. And we use language in regards to having them identify themselves as a brand. Because of the pandemic, they were on virtual conferences, no different than Nike, no different than Amazon, no different than any other corporation that got together and sat on a Zoom conference and had dialogue over topics. The goal was to transform them as seeing themselves just as students, but looking at themselves as young CEOs, right? And each individual student represents their own brand. When we broke down time, they understood that, well, you sleep, there's 24 hours in a day, you sleep 8 hours. A couple hours for eating, preparation, travel time. By the time you look at how much time do you really have left that you invest in yourself, right? And so this calls students to think. And Doc taught us about 15, 16 years ago, when they actually helped to fuel my love for psychology, the question was why? Why? And our students, they ask why, but they've been conditioned to not get answers, and to accept not being answered, and to accept that they don't have a platform. And if you think about epigenetics, as Dr. Navi broke it down, these symptoms take place in the way they carry themselves, right? If you don't believe that you are somebody, if you don't believe that you have a future, if you have a place, this is a wandering soul, right? And you have countless of wandering souls throughout the city, right, throughout the nation, and there's no context or a platform that allows them to feel that they have an investment in their own future, right? And so, again, the goal or the strategy behind the curriculum we create is to enhance their thinking, is to get them asking questions, is to get them to understand that school is a place where you come to enhance the skills you are already blessed and born with, right? But many times we stifle that. And so giving them, I think what CARES does is it gives a platform that their differences is not a mental illness, right? Their individual uniquenesses are not weaknesses of society or a downfall in terms of who and what they are. And so by elevating way they look at themselves, the way that they look at each other, right? And the way that they look at their elders, the way that brothers look at sisters, the way that sisters look at brothers. Before you know it, you create a culture of love, right? You become the embodiment of the village concept. And I think that many students and teenagers that we deal with, and on down, if given a chance, right? If given a genuine chance, they want to be happy. Right now, the road to happiness is, this has not been put in context for them. And again, if you know the fight for their freedoms and their rights will also go hand in hand by, putting them in a position where they're able to think and believe in themselves and believe that they matter. That's right. And that they do have a voice, and that each and every one of them, just like each and every one of us here, we have support, and that we're not alone. And so I think, again, with CARE is having mentors of different age groups. We have the elders that come down, and there's this intergenerational learning. Many of them haven't been loved by black men before, so when we say, well, they're so disrespectful, well, it's hard to judge a behavior if they haven't been consciously taught what a behavior is, right? So is it really disrespectful? What there are is searching, and many times we, as adults, we miss our opportunities to teach and to form these connections. And as time goes on, right, there's these gaps in this division. And so CARES helps to kind of form bridges between the young, my age, 45, right, and those older than myself. But there's these stories and lessons to be passed down, and CARES helps to do that. And I'm looking forward definitely to, we even have books like this. Our students are yearning for that, right? They're actually tired of just math, right? They're tired of just history. They're tired of just the basic instructions of a class. But they're looking for us to be engaged, right? They want to be stimulated. They want thought-provoking ideas that they go back home, share with their families, and then they come back to the school, and have this discussion. And to close out, last year when we did during Heritage Month, the strategy was we couldn't highlight certain things about race, but the critical race theory does nothing for a timeline. So what we did, we created a heritage timeline. Time is fact. At this time, at this place, this is what happened. When we showed sisters that black women defeated Rome, we showed them that black women brought spirituality to Africa, back to here, right? We showed how Islam was brought by, was enhanced by the black woman, and then we had sisters now walking around where they're no longer BITCHs, right? That's a queen, right? This sister has the ability to be an empress, right? So now they're starting to use this. They're starting to use a different language to identify themselves. And again, like I say, with having these kind of discussions that we're having, and then taking it back out to them, and then charging them with the responsibility for change, we've seen great works. Thank you.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Jatan Rollins, and I'm representing two organizations today. One, which happens to be my own 1863 FWD. And when you hear 1863, it's a call to what didn't happen, right? And how we're moving forward. The second organization that I'm representing is the Chicago Association of Black Social Workers as the past president of this organization. And so when I read this report, and so let me first say, I'm in the House of Conrad Wall. I'm in the House of Conrad Wall, and to recognize him on the national level, the National Association of Black Social Workers,
nobody on the meeting?
He transitioned. I feel even more honored. But I also met Dr. Nave. You kill the name, I keep saying name, but Nave. I met him years ago at the Black Social Workers, one of the meetings that we had, and this was my first introduction to the conversation about epigenetics. I was enthralled telling everybody about it. I was like, yes, you gotta know that you can press the reset button. It is not our destiny. And so I took so many messages from that. So when I read this report, it's the culmination of my life's work, of things that I've witnessed as a social worker being in the trenches. And so I come with the background of a child of CPS, Van Lissigen in 60628 in George Washington area Carver High School. I am a product of CPS, right? And so my education don't matter, right? Because I'm in this position representing a number of individuals who don't necessarily have a place at the table. And so when I read this report, I'm thinking in my child welfare background of 23 years in state child welfare, I moved myself from a place of being a worker to somebody who made decisions. And it was very intentional about creating change. And so I can never get away from the work of children and families because I was invested in it. I was embedded in it. So I saw generational traumas. So when I saw the research about the mice, you got this mice, and still carry that, even if they never smell the thing that got them, I was like, whoa. And so I was reminded of my time when I was in psych service, we were in clinical services. Young lady, 10 years old, I'll make it real quick, she was sexually abused. Her grandma was tripping her out with her boyfriend. Mama was sexually abused. Her mother, the grandmother, was sexually abused. I saw the generational traumas play itself out every day. Many more stories like that, many more. So our people wear the mask, right? We're supposed to act nice. We're supposed to not be angry. We're supposed to be okay. You're supposed to act a certain way in these spaces when we carry this rage inside of us and we think we have to choose something. And so I believe in what Mama Taylor said in relation to unity and love, right? And so my goal has always been to, one, help children find themselves in people. So I was blessed enough to know, yep, I come from Nigeria, yes, I did
Right.
DNA, right? But everybody doesn't know what tribe or what community they came from and that connectedness. So now I'm repping the green and white because that's where I'm from, right? And so you want to be a part of something. And so our children don't necessarily feel a part of something, right? And so that thing out on the street becomes real attractive because we feel connected, because we share in the same pain, right? And so as someone who has seen people suffer, but also be the greatest embodiments of triumph in a number of ways, like we need to keep telling that story.
That's right.
And so I remember as a 5-year-old child in kindergarten, moving from one space to Booker T. Washington, being handed Dick and Jane. And I was reading the book, everything was white, lily white, and I was like, I had to say, I got a dog. I have just as much fun as they're having in this book. But why am I not being emulated in the text that is being handed to me?
That's right.
So guess what? I wrote a book for little black girls. It was many, many, many years later, but it's the work of my life to make sure that children understand their roots. And so I was inspired when my travels to Australia to be amongst the National Association of Black Social Workers and understand the connectedness between African Americans, Native Americans, and the original people. We have the same fight across the world. So when Dr. Nave said it's around the world. So there is nothing that's an anomaly about the black experience in America, because I venture to say it's everywhere around the world. And so when I saw in their culture how they had the black, red, and yellow and everything wrapped around the poles, the footprints, the big footprints along the sidewalk, how they had the art everywhere and they gave homage to their ancestors. And every time they started a conversation, they said, I stand on the land of blase, blah, blah, blah. It resonated with me and it did not leave me. So I wrote another book. I'm counting on you. Because I wanted to have intentional conversations around what our responsibilities are to our children. And so Mama Taylor said intentional. Miss Ramona said intentional. We have to have intentional conversations with our children to press the reset button. So we know, and it doesn't take a rocket science to ride through any community, urban community to see that dialysis facilities are popping up like corner stores.
That's right.
There's a reason for that. So anything that we see, it's by design. It was meant that way. And so I work from the spirit of from birth to the end of life as a former caregiver for my grandmother, Maggie Passmore, who transitioned from Alzheimer's. So now I'm more cued in on inflammation and better diets, a plant diet, and cutting the meat out, and trying to be more active. And so what I saw in China, in Shanghai, when we looked at their community-based system, I'm folding everything that I learned back into the spaces that I touch. So for me to stand here or sit here in this space, it's already in the plan. That I want to see 80 and 90-year-old individuals doing Tai Chi. They're doing movement. It's like, wait a minute. 6 o'clock in the morning, all these people out here, like, why aren't our people out here exercising? We want to sit everybody down. Come on, mama so-and-so, sit on down. We got a chair for you. You know? They got them standing up doing activities to maintain the strength of their legs. If we only knew what others were doing and we folded it back, it's what we used to do, so we forgot. And so I'm very thankful to be in that space to try to help. And so I endeavor to continue to give voice to the plight of Black folk, to help unify us, to understand that you don't have to choose, that there is the option to always do both and, because we are often conflicted with, I have to do this or I have to do that. And so I'm in the space of creating living wages. I want to put people, so I worked for DHS for 2 years, and I just like Miss Ramona, I left the state system to be free. It wasn't on my terms, but it was on my terms. Because now I'm doing exactly what God purposed me to do. So the voice that wasn't heard, the things that I tried to implement, I now can do this on my own. And so there are many more of us like this. So I'm honored. I was like, did he make a mistake to put me on this panel? Imposter syndrome came up on me last night, and I started having nerves about it. And I was like, I absolutely have a seat at the table because I've witnessed it, I've lived it, and I tried to be an embodiment of what that means. And my last thing is, my father, who has been clean for 20 years, was addicted to crack cocaine for 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? For a very, very long time. But I had the balance of a strong mother who exposed me to the NAACP, who got me into all these meetings, the T's, the cotillions, and all that. And our kids don't necessarily have the balance. They've been shorted out on it. And so we have to make up the balance and create a community, create the village when there's a missing person. And so I'm endeavoring to have people think about who's in my village. Who can I trust? The issue of trust came up several times in this conversation. And so you have to know people. You have to know people as best as you can to provide our kids. And I can't get away from kids. I can't get away from them. I was like, I don't want to do that grant for the kids, but I cannot get away from the babies. And while I'm dealing with the babies, I'm dealing with the system. And so I say all of that to say, if we create balance, it's not nature versus nurture. It is both and. And if we think about creating the best environments for our kids, whether it's at home, in the spaces in which they play, who we put around them, it is so important. And so I look forward to future projects where I'm incorporating both the parent, part of the system. You can't fix little John and little Susie without addressing what's going on in the household because your work is for naught. So you must address the system. And so there are many people that are hurting with incarceration, and those families have no place to go, and they have this lived and shared experiences of loss, grief around what was, when the moneymaker is locked up, and you got to figure out a way, right? And so now the kids feel like they have to step up to take the place, and so we have to provide them with alternatives and places and spaces that give them life.
That's right.
And celebrate them, and that's the
Ashe, sister.
Praises due. I'm not going to stay too long. This is
We're really feeling the vibe here. And I do go by the spirit. First of all, my name is Yai Simpson, Sister Yai, aka your favorite community epidemiologist. You may have heard me on WBON. That's one of my tags. Unfortunately, wasn't able to find the presentations I had for Brother Cam today. But that's the way it works. But my real inference here is, as an epidemiologist, I do bring the science. So forgive me if it gets a little bit less in the social realm, but a little bit more in the science realm. So Brother Cam sent this to me a couple of weeks ago. You know, I just read it like last week. But he wanted me to give a critique to this because this is the type of work as an epidemiologist that I actually do deal with in some instances. By the way, for those who may not know, I actually did write the first Black epidemiological profile for the health department in 200 years, where the reference is black and black and non-black. That has never happened. So I'm not just speaking science, I'm living it too. And by the way, sister, thank you for telling me whose house we in, because we are also in the house of Baba Carruthers, who stood at this very space right here and helped me to go to Ghana. So I say to all our ancestors that walked through this building. Baba Hannibal, Mama Fulani, y'all know the names. Oh, come on now. Phil Jackson, come on now. I'm sorry, but I am not sorry. I'm intentional. So what we're doing is having this conversation around a book that was put together. That's what I, was told that we had to work on. And the real reason is for the critique of the book and for analysis of the book. So I had some analysis for you, but I'm going to keep this kind of brief. This was another thing I actually just did for therapeutic pharmaceuticals. Yeah, I got to check out of that one. But anyway, the point is, they paid me to talk about clinical trials research. You know why? Because they want to talk to black people, they don't know how. So they get people like me. I don't mind being the messenger, but I darn sure control the message. And so what they had to realize is my colors come in red, black, and green. I talk around naturalism and culturalism, and they just had to deal with it. Well, one of those conversations came from this presentation I did on clinical trials 101, where we deal with the aspect of how people relate to research in a sense. So because I was told that this was going to be about the book, which is more or less a research agenda, if you didn't know, I kind of stayed on the research side. And just one of the things that I bring up with, you already know about Harriet Washington. I'm sure some of y'all got this book and know it better than I do, Medical Apartheid. But she's one of my mentors as well. But the point that I'm making is historical malevolence is really one of the biggest factors, no matter if we're talking about epigenetics or any type of research. The reason being is historical has to be in the construct of, we used to say false evidence appearing real. I know y'all know that about fear, but actually it is our job to make it factual evidence that is real. Because the facts do remain that historical malevolence is today. It's not post-traumatic stress, it's current traumatic stress. And even if you're not diagnosed, you're carrying it with you. That is what this book is really trying to make the bridge to. It says transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. So I just started calling it TEI, because we do acronyms sitting in my world. So TEI has always been about making that factual jump and saying it's not just something I don't know, Big Mama scared. She's scared for a reason. It's not just because she doesn't believe it is the boogeyman. It is something inside. And so I'm going to deal with what's inside. Triggers. Now, in this particular book, if you all didn't read it, it gets into the actual cellular genetic makeup. And I'm not going to go into it. I can talk about histones and cytokines and all of that, but I'm not going to do that right now. What we're going to talk about are triggers, because why? Because it is the triggers that either turn on or off. We're all born with these triggers. Let me say that again. Everybody in this room came on this planet with trauma. Because if the stars blow up, so do you. You are the same aspect of stardust. Why did I say that? Because the planet is violent. Oh, y'all don't want to hear truth. It is a violent world. Violence means pushing up on your body, making you do things that you may or may not know why. We are all born with that. What is the difference? when you got that God gene and recognize it, you transcend it. That's the difference. What we have to recognize as scientists in our world, for our people, is to recognize that we all have this in us, but we have the ability to be hurt people that can hurt. We also have the ability to be healed people that can heal. The evidence in this book that was presented was like she talked about the mice. I'm not going to get into all of that. But the real reason she was doing that between the mice and the other fish and the other parts that the animals, is because there is human studies on this, but they will never tell you that. That is what the whole, the whole camp with the Jews and all that, the Ma'afa, that is all an experiment, by the way. But what they're saying is, how do you relate over time? And how are these genes expressed over time? And they're expressed in a way that either triggers you to do something wrong or not, or malevolent, or it can trigger you to transcend it with the God gene and do something better. I am here to present to you that you're right. We're not the only ones in the world going through this, but it's about our story, so it's our perspective.
That's right.
We have to have the right perspective about us. We are part of a bigger scheme than just us, but at the same time, we're still who we need to be. It's like it is cosmology. And that is the science of studying all things interrelated in the cosmos. We are part of that cosmos. So the genes that you have in your body are the same genes that are going to be in the universe. It is how you express it. And that's what we're really trying to study it from brown eyes. They'll tell you a different way. I'm going to tell you our perspective. And with our perspective, like we called on our ancestors, it's about how we remember who we are and how we deal with our transgressions. So when we say factual evidence appearing real, our job is not just to relive what she put in the book. I don't want you to relive it. I want you to reimagine what you can do better. And that's what that young man was talking about. The young man was talking about with these young people. Just because I was traumatized, you don't have to carry it. Even though I gave it to you, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give it to you, but I'm also going to give you what it takes to heal. See the difference? I don't just let it go. I deal with it. I come through it. That is what Big Mama was trying to say. The boogeyman is here, but I got a hammer. What is she really saying? I'm not telling you it won't happen. I'm telling you I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to confront. And that is in the triggers that we have to deal with. The confrontation of dealing with violence, pushing up on my body, making me uncomfortable. Possibly what? Making me sick. This what? Ease. Now we're going back to the science, right? Y'all getting that? So the diseases that perpetrate through our community, y'all know this, obesity, diabetes. I'm not just saying it to be, cavalier about it. I'm saying it because it's so prevalent in our communities that it is just so much a non-brainer. We're not detecting the fact that it's not there. As an epidemiologist, I do the numbers on this. It's there. COVID is real. All of this is real. It is happening. HIV is real. It is transmitting. Hepatitis is real. It is transmitting. It is not that these elements won't happen. It is how you deal with them. And in the end, and I really do feel the spirit. I want y'all to talk. In the end, I want y'all to recognize that what we want is to talk about health equity. Not that it won't happen, but how you have, and the sister said, balance. You're going to have some sickness, whether it's mental or physical. There will always be something about you that is not quite there. No one here is perfect. We just work toward perfection. Get the difference? And as you're working toward that perfection, you do have to struggle. And it's in that struggle that you find your God gene and you transcend what it is that's ailing you. So that's called quality of life. Black people's life expectancy is is worse. It's bad compared to everybody else. But it doesn't mean everybody else's quality of life is better than ours. It's a perspective. Am I changing some minds here? It's like, and I'll end with this one because I had so much I could say, but dealing with the mechanisms of epigenetics is really, from an African perspective, has to be about how we transcend and be a part of the universe. Yeah. If you're separating yourself out, you've lost the race already. And I'm not critiquing the book. The book does it's a summary. They don't do a lot of methodological. I'll talk to you later about that. There's some other methodological constructs she could have done, a lot of data she could have added. But for what she did add, it is good. She does prove the point. She answers the question, is it passed on from generations to generations? But I heard somebody on the panel say already, she didn't tell us nothing we didn't know. I think the sister right here, mama right here, already says we already knew that. It's not that we didn't already know, it's how we're framing it. And the young people like to say the narrative from which we're talking about it. I'm one of those young people. But we say our narrative, and like the brother said, it is how we tell our story. We are all passing on our ancestors' genes and generations. That would be unhumane to not do that in anybody's culture. But how we express to be better is up to us. So as much as we can come with things that did go bad, the traumas, we can also come with the healing. And what I'd like to end is increasing our better quality of life is my goal. Increasing our life expectancy, not just you can live and be, I don't want people to live and be destructive. You can just went on about your way with that. I want you to live a better quality of life, and that's instructive, that has the right perspective on why are we here as human, as spiritual beings having a human experience. It is to have the right perspective. And the right perspective is anything outside of that which created the sun is of no concern to you. That which created the sun created us. So therefore we have the ability to change our genetics and our trauma. And that's what they're trying to get at. Epigenetics is not a new construct, it's just new words around. But how do we change the way we move through this life is what she was trying to get at. And yes, we have a lot of social ills, but those ills can be healed with us. We were the first and we should be the last. Start claiming it is what you want to see done. If you want balance and healing, speak more on that. How do we achieve the balance in the healing? I'm going to speak on how we achieve health equity. And that doesn't mean without disease. That means being balanced with the disease. Even if you have it, I still live longer. Even with the women that's in Japan that I know she was referring to, they're the oldest women or on average on the planet. Not because they don't have trials and tribulations. They learned how to deal with it through meditation, through healing practices. So these are the people and these are the constructs that we have to emulate. I'm not discounting all the ills that are wrong. I'm just not counting it as the only ones. I'm looking for the other side of the moon. Thank you so much, and hopefully we get more instruction. If you all want to get my book, it is free, by the way. It's online, and I can give you the website. I would have had all that up there for you, but unfortunately, it didn't happen because that's not what the Spirit wanted. But please, if you want to get more into epidemiology around epigenetics, we could have a much more concentrated conversation.
What's the website? People on IG are asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. The website for the book that, if you don't mind, Brother Cam, is called The State of Health for Blacks, and it's www, and it's City of Chicago. I know y'all hated that, but cityofchicago.gov/Black Health. We're the only book that they've ever put out like this where it's free to the world as a PDF, and all you need is the internet to get it.
Black Health.
Yes, /Black Health. They have never done a book like this, and they, divine order. They didn't know what they was doing, but I did. cityofchicago.gov/Black Health. If you put that in your browser, it will come up as a PDF, and you can download it free of charge. Or just read it there. You ain't got to download nothing. Just read it right there. So it is free. And more importantly, it's the only book of its kind in 200 years that's ever done an epidemiological profile of blacks in the city of Chicago compared to non-blacks. We don't compare ourselves to others. We just be who we are. All right. Thank you.
Barry, find it and put it up there. He gonna put it on the monitor. Yeah.
Yes,
Does it have an EIU open access on it?
He gonna put it on the monitor.
Can we give a round of hands to our panelists? One more time, thank you all so much. So what I would like to happen for the next, if we can get 15 minutes of y'all time, I want to make sure there's remarks, questions, comments, reflections, introductions. The thing that's most valuable about this meeting now is that people get to have a chance to mingle and talk to each other. I hope that, if you can at least meet 5 new people, the people in your circle, like don't listen to the thing and then run out. Like make sure we make contacts, passing cards, get Instagrams. I want a couple of closing statements from us, and then we're gonna open the floor. We have a special guest, Dr. Onaji is in town. I didn't expect him to be here. He is the co-facilitator of the Wellness Committee for Cobra. Comes from, Philly? He didn't even basically Philly. Came out of Philly for this conversation. So I'd like for him to share some of his perspectives about the report and some of your work. And then I would like Cam to sort of wrap up with some next steps, some instructions, some things that he needs from us to move the reparations along. There was a 10-day window you talked about last night that I want people to know about. Then some open conversation, and then I want to break soon so that y'all can stay for a little bit to just talk amongst each other, meet, plan, and then we're gonna keep on moving. So Dr. Onaji, Cam, and then open floor, and then we're gonna break pretty soon. Thank you very much.
To the elder who spoke earlier, do I have permission to speak? I got my pass, I off the plantation, but I gotta get back, from Philadelphia, but it's good to be on this plantation with y'all, for real. Of all the forms of inequity and equality, injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhumane. Dr. Martin Luther King. The mission of the Health Commission is to convene, organize, coordinate the African American health intelligentsia to define the rehabilitation aspect of reparations for COBRA to make our people whole. So I'm so honored to be in your company in this space because we are liberating ourselves, we're liberating our minds, our bodies, we in fact are liberating our people. In short, the Health Commission is intentions to produce a national comprehensive public health program to augment and establish optimum well-being for people of African descent. That's what we're about. We are 2 things. One is that we're asking you to join in COVID, number 1, right? And I'm asking you to join the Health Commission, number 2, because if this is going to become real in our lives, it's because we come in circle and stay in circle together, and we're calling it social health circles. We come together and we talk about our life, we talk about what's going on for the solution. As a social worker, a member of the National Association of Black Social Workers, there's a concept in social work that's called critical evaluation that says we're not only interested in the analysis, we're interested in the solution. So this report is helping us to say, this is good news, folks. This is some serious good news because now we're saying we have a scientific base to look to and build upon a health regime that's going to make us well and healthy. This also says this. It says that Amilcar Cabral, the leader of the PAIGC from Guinea-Bissau, said the oppressor will, in order for a oppressor to control you, he must commit cultural genocide. But the people embody the culture, so either you have to commit physical genocide or you have to create cultural genocide. So when we use the word Sankofa, we're saying return back to who we are, to fetch what we lost and bring it forward. And I'm asking everyone if you would be so kind to repeat after me. Wahini Misu.
Wahini Misu.
Wahini Misu.
Wahini Misu.
Wahini Misu.
Wahini Misu.
You said, what is that? Well, that is the national program to reestablish Ma'at, which is what? Order, balance, harmony, reciprocity, truth, justice, compassion. When our people embrace this national program to reestablish our cultural integrity, that's how we become healthy. That's how we become well. So I'm not going to say too much because I'm asking you to join in COBRA, number 1. I'm asking you to join the Health Commission, number 2, because that's when you take your work or this information and you move it into acceptance, you move it into application, right? So it's not just enough to be aware of something. You're aware of something because we're bringing this to your attention. But the question now, can you accept this to be true? Can you accept this to be something that you want to use in your life? And then are you willing to take action on it? Because when there's no action, there is really no progress. Thank you very much. So the email for the commission is NCOBRA, NCOBRA, Health Commission @gmail.com. Very simple. NCOBRA, Health Commission @gmail.com. .com. But I would have to say that you also have in your presence the distinguished Dr. Fatima Hafiz, who is doing this work on the ground with the people, and you want to get plantation friends in Philadelphia. So we got our pass, and we got to get back. But we're so happy to be with you. Thank you so much.
I also want to Susan Taylor talked about the power of Chicago and Black America. So talked about it in business, but also in the reparations movement. I'm the second male national co-chair of NCOBRA that came out of Chicago. Dr. Father Hannibal Afrique, who was mentioned, was a 6-year co-chair of NCOBRA. I'm in my 5th year, so about a third of NCOBRA's life, the leadership has been out of Chicago. And we cannot lead this organization if it wasn't for the rest of our members. So I'd like all the NCOBRA members who are in the house to stand up. Dr. Tooth, why are you still sitting down? All right, so thank you. That's right. So, yeah. So, I talked about this report, getting the Health Commission to really make sure that it spoke to our people. We had 3 audiences in mind for this report. And it's difficult when you're trying to persuade through something persuasive and you're dealing with different audiences. But we had 3 audiences. One of the primary audiences was white liberal America, because we're not going to get reparations if we don't convince enough of them, right? In Congress, there's 53 CBC members, but you need 218 votes to pass legislation. So numerically, we can't pass some legislation if we only depend on ourselves. So we have to be able to convince a certain number of white people that this is a valid action for them to take, meaning reparations. And so we had to put this on a scientific basis to take it out of conjecture. And so this report spoke specifically to them. The second audience we wanted to speak to in this report is Black professionals. Because the healing has to come from our community. That's what it covers. The healing has to come from our community, and our community has to be equipped with this knowledge to give them added tools to fight for the resources and to be able to implement the protocols and practices that they know are necessary for our community to heal. And so that was the second audience. And the third audience, as I talked about, was lay Black people who all they know is that they got to eat a little better, they got to sleep a little more, they got to breathe a little better, to keep this, this ill health profile from developing into all the diseases that Sister Yah talked about in our community. So we had those 3 audiences in mind, and it's up for everybody who hears about this report to take whatever it is out of this report, and share it with your family members, with your colleagues, with your white allies, if you have any, because this is how we move the issue forward for reparations, to get these resources targeted at our community. We had a program yesterday that town hall meeting out in Evanston, Illinois. Evanston was the first city to provide reparations on a local level. And Sister Robin Simmons and NARC, they brought out over 23 cities who were doing some type of local action. Was there for a 3-day summit, and I gave just a brief statement of where we are with H.R. 40, which is the federal legislation. Right now, we have 194 co-sponsors. I was talked about to give legislation passed in the House, a bill passed, you need 218 votes. We have 194 co-sponsors. We have an additional 18 congresspersons who says, if it makes it to the floor, I'm not going to co-sponsor, but if it makes it to the floor, I'll vote yes. Then we have the bill sponsor with Sheila Jackson Lee. So we have a total of 213 votes. 5 more votes is what we're short to get this bill passed out of the House. We know we're not going to get it passed in the Senate because you need a 60-vote majority, and we're not going to get 10 Republicans crossover. In fact, this is a total Democratic partisan bill. It's not a Republican even in the House who signed it. So our goal is to get this passed out of the House, and we have a very short window, 10 days, 12 days, give or take, to get these last 5 votes, get it passed out the House, and then pivot over to the White House and have the president to do this via executive order. The Democrats have passed it. You know we can't get it passed in the Senate. The Senate leadership on the Democratic side, all are in favor of it. We have there's about 20 committees in the Senate, and we have about 11 or 12 of the chairs of those committees already signed on to the Senate bill. So the leadership in the Democratic Party is for this legislation. Was it not for this filibuster, it would be passed through the House and the Senate. But since there is a filibuster, President, you said you had our back, pass this legislation. So that's the plan. We're meeting. Several groups are meeting on a weekly basis with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee to push this bill. We have a level of opposition that is from the leadership in the Democratic Party on the House side. Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, who's the leader of the party, and James Clyburn, the most powerful, quote-unquote, black person in Congress. He's the majority whip whose job is to whip up these last remaining votes. They are opposing this bill coming to the floor out of fear that it would harm the midterm elections. So it's up to us for these last few days to call their offices and simply say, we can't wait HR 40 to the floor. We can't wait send HR 40 to the floor for a vote. We can't wait. That's the message. It has been working. Again, we're just 5 votes short. This is a historical moment. When we introduced the report in DC, we introduced it about 2 weeks ago in DC, we had 6 CBC members, congresspersons, stand with us, stating that this is the science that should propel this government to act. So at the highest level of government in this country, they're utilizing this report to make their argument. And so we have to utilize it as well to do the healing, to get the resources in our community, which is what Reparations is about, is getting resources in our community to do the healing from all the atrocities that have been committed. So we are listing everyone here to call Pelosi, Hoyer, and Clyburn's office, saying HR 40 to the floor, HR 40 can't wait.
We got 2 minutes. Any quick comments? Just like a real brief.
Can I suffer with 4 minutes?
Okay. And then we're gonna do this 3, and then we're
For
gonna.
a reason, and this is because I want everybody to get an idea of the concept, and it will take about 2 minutes, okay? I trained in primary care internal medicine at Cook County Hospital, formerly Cook County John Stroger Memorial now. And when I came up here as an extern, and I was a senior in med school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I didn't want to just be a psychiatrist. And so somebody approached me in the halls and said, have you ever thought of Dr. Lemon or Dr. Kalau, Captain Kalau, just a socialist type white woman that was just a genuine people. And the people in the county, they were very genuine in what they believed in because they were underpaid and overworked. But they told me about primary care internal medicine. Primary care internal medicine takes a biopsychosocial approach to healthcare. And it's really important that we understand that and that we go forth in what we're doing from this perspective, and the reason is why. Bio equates to the mind, body. Psycho equates to the mind, and social relates to the community. And if you don't attack healthcare and attack the problems associated with ill health from a biopsychosocial matter, you're never going to get optimal health from the individual or from the community. So it's a community-based approach. We can talk more about it, but I'm actually attempting to put pen to paper on a third book in which I would talk about transgenerational epigenetics and the Black diaspora and how we have to begin looking from a health perspective, Dr. Marie, how we approach it. And if you're from the social service side, social work side, from the psychiatric and mental health side, or from the medical side, you have to integrate all three of these pieces into any approach, any comprehensive or global or national perspective. It has to take this in mind as a foundation of how we go about it, because you're going to have certain people going to say, oh, we want to deal with the social services side of it.
You don't got links for that.
No, all of it. It's not going to work. All of it is done. And I just wanted to table that, put that in front of you, because as we go forth as a body, it's important that we all we have to be singular in our approach in terms of our understanding of this. And as we lay down these foundational principles, and people like Cam and Obari and leadership, we got to keep this in mind. We got to put this down as the foundational bricks in any approach that we do as a community. And in doing that, I'm sure the outcomes are going to be exponentially better. Thank you.
Real quick, 3 quick comments, then we're going to wrap up. I see my brother right here. Somebody in the back had a hand up. Did I miss it? Oh, yeah, and then Baba Ola Supo, and then we're going to wrap up. Oh, sorry, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can I just say one thing in response? I just want to say that that's what our motto is.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Hakeem Teray. I'm the state director of Black City, Illinois, so I'm a Black conservative. When it comes to the talks of reparations, what scares me or what concerns me is that, first of all, I want to say that this isn't a partisan issue, because on both sides, the GOP and the DNC, we have reparationists. So as an ADOS citizen or a B1 citizen, we have brought to the conversation reparations. But the issue is that a lot of us can't win Senate seats because we have, every time we run for a Senate seat or a Congress seat, we get called names and get oppressed, run against us, right? So we have sisters like Shamika Michelle or sisters like Sharice Lane or whatever, but it's a bipartisan issue, right? So my issue though is that I was just talking to Brother Michael Barhill about this shit like 2 weeks ago. When it comes to like reparations, my issue is that everybody has a different concept of what reparations is and how we gonna get it. So when it differs on a functionality standpoint so variously from group to group to group, it kind of concerns me. So my question is, what are we doing today to make sure that reparations isn't received in a way that's fiscal or fiat, so that when we get it doesn't look like a stimulus check where Black people can spend it, throw it away, and say, you know, hey, the white man did something for us, we good now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What are we doing to form intercommunal think tanks or Black plebiscites where we can centralize whatever money that we are going to receive or whatever supplements that we are going to receive to make sure that the reparations isn't squandered?
It's all conceptual right now.
It's all conceptual.
But that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Because you have to start off with a concept before you can make it concrete. Now, the issue that I wrote about in the book was just that. And my thing is, first thing we got to do is we have to come up with fiduciary responsibility. And it has to be something, it can't be one centrally fiduciary. You know what I'm talking about in the book, huh? You got to have some, the Western Hemisphere, North, East, South. It's got to be broken into compartments, and there's got to be board of directors over any global amount of money, so that people have a fiduciary responsibility. In other words, you can go to jail if any of this money is not spent directly. Also, if you think about it, the reason why reparations is misunderstood is that people don't actually know what reparations is. Right. And if you don't study reparations from a historical perspective, it means something different than what most people think. So reparation means to repair or restore for damage that historically has impacted a group of people, because it's not really a person. A person would take a civil suit, but for a group of people, it's a group collective attempt to repair damage that has been done. And it has to be included in certain things that guarantee that it won't be done again. Guarantee that there's some understanding about what was done in a formal type of apology. And then it has to be programmed and set up to comprehensively restore the people who were damaged. So unless people start understanding exactly what reparations is, we're never going to get out of the conceptual phase, because only a few of us who are really working on that ground roots level that have a clear understanding. I'm not saying that that makes us better or anything like that. It's just saying that we've studied this as a science, so we have a different perspective on what it means.
Right.
So, and then that's our goal, is to educate people, to write books, to write literature, to be in the community. Somebody else had something.
Let me, my second part of my question, I'm done, real quick. So, like, all that sounds pristine from an ideological standpoint, right? So, like, but now, if the end goals of reparations is some type of sustenance in the black community, right? At what point do we realize that the end goal for reparations is somewhat in naught or being counteracted because the people that we choose to form alliances with are Marxists, homosexuals, are breaking down the nuclear family?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't care about all that right now. I care about getting into the solution.
How can we get to the solution?
Hold on.
I want to know my question here, bro. How can we get to the solution, like when you guys are doing such this great anthropological work to build back the black community, where there's a bigger structure above them telling them that the nuclear family don't mean nothing and gender roles don't mean nothing?
All right, we got the 2 questions. Sam's gonna respond, and then we're gonna move it around. Thank you, bro.
I got a response to that.
So, and Cobra has always stated, well, not always, probably about 15 or so years ago, we talked about the 5 injury areas, primary injury areas. We know, Susan Taylor talked about strategy, right? We know if we would have been talking check, cash payment for 30 years, we would still be in the same place we've been, nowhere.
Right.
So we intentionally did not talk about cash payments, although compensation is a component of reparations, and we're not going to, shy away from that. But we focus on the 5 injury areas: education, economics, which includes the wealth gap, health, which we're here today talking about, physical and mental health, the criminal injustice system, how we've been over incarcerated, and war has been waged to criminalize us, even from birth. And also our people and our culture has been snatched away from us. So we tend to focus on seeing reparations in this big picture, not just the compensation model. And so that's the answer to your first question. So also you say reparations is bipartisan. And I would have to say that there may be some black conservatives who are in favor of reparations, but there's no black Republican who's elected has voted for reparations since the Reconstruction. Right? So it's really a partisan issue. We would love to get a Republican over and make it, you only need one to say it's bipartisan. If we could say it's bipartisan, it would move us faster to getting it passed in this country, but it's not bipartisan. It's simply a democratic focus. And so that probably will address your second question.
Okay. Thank you, Cam. 2 more comments, then we're going to wrap this up. I'll go about Olatuto first, and then Sis, and then I think we'll be good.
Well,
Brother Khan, all the best. Congratulations for your hard work. There's something there about how do you get white support. And I think that white people have been very hurt. So they've been repairing to hurt. Hurt. You have to not feel them. You have to be dead inside. So it is a kind of death. And when you think about it, it looks like white people, at least this society has all the money in the world, and they're still going around stealing more money. There's a hunger there. there's a disease, there's a hunger that needs to be addressed also. So the repairing shouldn't just be for black people. White people need a lot of repairing. One other thing I'd like to say is that a wound is an opportunity. Black people in America are some of the wisest, smartest people on this earth. Because that tremendous wound is also a great teacher. That's how we produce somebody like Martin Luther King and some of the people who are in this room. I think that's good enough.
Good afternoon. I just would like to say that I'm just really honored that I'm here today, and also about reading the report. And the work that I do, I'm working with young people, and young black, young men and young women that are in need of the services and of the panel. And I just like to say that I'm hoping to be able to work with the organization, because everything that we're doing, everything that we in the program that I'm doing, like
What's your program?
the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Program. I'm sorry, my name is Catherine Jackson, and I'm director of the program. And one of the things that I'm learning, because at times we become the student, not necessarily the teacher or the leader when we're working with young people. And one of the things in this past year, the last 20 months, is that is everything that you're all talking about, me talking about helping them find a job and they're feeling good about themselves, is exactly this. They have to have this first before they can go out here and deal with the world. They have to have all of these things that you're talking about, and I will bring in my young people here so they can have this, because before they can do anything else, they have to understand this. So I just really wanted to say that I'm always listening from being here in Chicago, Philip, and all that, but I understand that our young people are hurting, and the reason that everything is happening to them right now because they don't have this. And so I just want to give you guys yay, amen, keep it going, it's great. And when I call y'all, they need you. They need you. So thank you.
Thank you. That's a strong final statement. I'll take that as an end. I appreciate y'all's time. Thanks for staying a little bit late. Please connect with the members of the Association of Black Psychologists. We got an incoming national president in the house, Dr. Bethia. We got powerful people in the room. Don't run out. Meet some folks, and we're going to keep on doing this work. Thank y'all for coming.
Man, President, brother.
Nah, this is tough.
Always proud of you, man.
How you stop this thing? Oh, here it is.
We need to talk to you and